everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Skeleton Crew. I'm Jen Callahan, your host. And tonight I have a great guest with me. Her name is Rachel Ward. She is a radiation therapist. And tonight she's going to be here talking about the company that she works for. It's SkinCure. And they have a special type of skin cancer treatment that they have developed called Gentle Cure. So I'm going to leave all the technicalities to her because it's interesting form of treatment that I personally have never heard of before. So I'm really interested to have this conversation with Rachel. Rachel, thank you so much for being with me tonight.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I gave us just a brief introduction of what we're going to be talking about. So let's start on the top layer of the treatment of Gentle Cure and what sets it apart, I guess, from other types of skin cancer treatments.
Yeah. So traditionally, there has been Mohs surgery or a removal of the skin cancer where they're going to take out portions of the skin cancer. A trained dermatologist is going to go immediately review that under a microscope, and they're going to continue removing more and more tissue until they have clear margins and have removed that entire skin cancer. So with this, what we're doing is a non-invasive option for our patients. What we're doing now is treating with image-guided superficial radiation therapy. It's a non-invasive treatment that has over a 99% cure rate for our patients.
Okay. So the image guided portion of it, what are you using to guide, using?
We're using ultrasound imaging.
Oh, okay. So you're trained as, like myself, you have your RT, but then you went even further and became a rad therapist. And then do you do the actual ultrasound or does a doctor do it with you?
We're radiation therapists and we are using that ultrasound as our onboard imaging. So just like we can take portal images or our CBCT to do alignments for our treatments, this is our onboard imaging. So we, as radiation therapists, are the ones doing the ultrasound for this. And actually, I don't have a diagnostic background as an RT. Okay. I went right into radiation therapy.
Obviously, you had to get trained then on the ultrasound portion of it. Was that difficult for you?
It wasn't. So SkinCure handles all of the training for our new hires, and it's a very easy system to learn how to use.
So you're ultrasounding the patient on the area of where the skin cancer is believed to be. And then from there, between yourself and I assume a doctor, or is it a dosimetrist, who's coming up with what the treatment plan will be?
So it does depend on the state's regulations, but it will be a physician doing that treatment planning. We don't use dosimetrists. It's a very standard and basic treatment. We're only using 3 different energies. So there's not much planning that goes into the actual isodose lines or anything like that. We're not drawing contours. So it is just a physician telling us what energy we're going to treat at and doing a prescription for that patient.
So you do your initial scan, you figure out what the treatment plan is, and then you administer it. How long does a treatment like that last?
Typically, the treatment is about 30 seconds, and the patient's going to come in for a series of treatments, usually in the range of like 20 treatments.
Is that generally about 20 treatments that you need?
Yeah, that's usually the fractionation. It's just like in a rad-onc department. You wouldn't give that entire dose of radiation all in one treatment. The patient's body is not going to be happy with us if we do that. Yeah, it would eliminate the skin cancer, but we'd cause more damage than good.
Right. And I'm sure it kind of depends on how large of an area that needs to be treated, possibly how deep the cancer is in the skin, right?
Yeah, so SkinCure Oncology has been amazing, and they have a full team of radiation oncologists, dermatologists, and radiation therapists who have all gone through and fine-tuned this set of protocols that are specific to SkinCure Oncology and the partnerships we have with these dermatology offices. So it's a really good protocol system that is backed by clinical studies.
I was reading on the site that superficial rod therapy isn't really a new thing, and it was actually developed quite some time ago and kind of got pushed off the scene because to treat skin cancer, the Mohs surgery was kind of, insurances took to it more, and the superficial rod therapy kind of got pushed to the back burner.
Even Mr. Rankin himself was using radiation to treat skin cancers. But yeah, dermatologists, actually like 50% of dermatologists used some form of radiation back in like the 1950s and 60s. And it started just getting highly regulated. And then the dermatologists started learning Mohs micrographic surgery as their residents in the programs. Mm-hmm. So then by the time they all came out of that program, that was kind of what had taken over. So luckily in 2015, these machines were engineered to be small, easy to use, and fit in these dermatology offices. So we were able to kind of get superficial radiation therapy back into the picture.
So the image guided is really cool. And is this something unique to SkinCure that they've developed?
Yes. So right now we're utilizing the Census Healthcare's SRT 100 Vision. So that one is the one that does incorporate that 22 megahertz ultrasound image.
Did they use something prior to the census?
So SkinCure has been around since about 2015. One of our radiation therapists, Stephen Scott, he was treating with the image guided superficial radiation, and he actually delivered one of the first treatments to a patient with that modality. So it's really kind of started in 2015 where that was available for treatment.
Okay.
And so when he recognized there was a large need for this therapy, but understood that not every dermatology office was going to front all of the money for that startup. So that's kind of how SkinCure Oncology was created. SkinCure Oncology now partners with these dermatology offices and gives them everything that they need to give this treatment to their patients. And I mean, everything. It is the machine, the in-suite shielding, the paper tape, all the way to the protocols and the trained radiation therapist.
Oh, wow.
So we're really giving that cancer center approach. And that's how we're really standing apart with that 99% cure rate, as well as a 99% patient satisfaction. And I mean, as somebody who's been cut on, I'm sure you can really appreciate that not being cut on. It's a lot of patients who have been just dealing with skin cancer their entire life where this is really benefiting them. And sadly, a lot of patients, after going through skin cancer after skin cancer, they start to not want to seek treatment because they know what the treatment is. It's being cut on. And if they don't want to, I mean, say a golfer who doesn't want to stop golfing because they know that if they have surgery, they can't golf for 4 weeks. Right. So they will just put it off. So luckily, this is a treatment that has no downtime for the patients.
Do you see like almost repeat patients come back with different...
Like frequent flyers.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's one, because obviously there's skin exposure, that they're going out in the sun and possibly not wearing sunscreen? Or do you take notice that maybe it's a certain type of skin? Like, are they very fair? Do they have people with red hair and fair skin feel like tend to be, a little bit more sensitive to the sun? Or do you find that it's people who have dark olive complexions and they're just not taking notice to their skin? I don't know. What do you think?
No, so we know that skin cancers come from UV rays, from tanning beds or the sun, and just genetics. So it is a lot of the fair skin, light-eyed, light-haired that are the ones who unfortunately are more prone to having those skin cancers. And once you've had a skin cancer and that's like part of your medical history, you're prone to having more of them. So it's really something that, especially people who start out young, they kind of know that that's in their future.
Talking about not having to get cut, there's great benefits to that. And you were saying about the 99% effectiveness and then how consistent the results are. I mean, that's not to say a selling point because you're not trying to sell anything to anybody. You're trying to just offer another treatment option to patients, which is great to have these results, proven results for this.
Yeah, so we actually, one of our things with SkinCure Oncology is we started a site called SkinCure. So the treatment kind of got named by the patients as a gentle cure. So we call it SkinCure now. Mm-hmm. SkinCure actually has a website where we teach informed consent, and we want patients to be empowered to make a decision once they know all of their treatment options. Because I'm sure you've gone to the doctor and there was something wrong and the doctor was like, oh, this is going to be the treatment. And you just kind of are like, okay, because you don't really know better and they're the doctor, whatever they say goes. But we're really trying to encourage them to be part of that discussion and help them feel empowered. And when you are doing a treatment that is something you are knowledgeable on and that you agreed with, you actually have better outcomes. So it works out for the patients having more positive outcomes too.
It's nice that the patients at, SkinCure are being involved and that you guys are trying to educate them on what's being done and why and what the results are going to be and what they can expect. It's admirable, to be honest, that you guys go above and beyond.
Right. And because the company was created by a radiation therapist, and there's radiation therapists at so many key levels. And that's one thing that I really love about the company is that healthy work culture where the people who are in charge in the management positions and those higher up roles, they've been where we've been. So they know what's going on. When it came to educating patients, it was coming from radiation therapists, the people who are talking to the patients about their treatment and helping them understand their diagnosis. It's a really supportive community to be a part of.
So with your history of being a rad therapist, have you been in like the skincare portion of it for most of your career, or did you work in, not to say like a normal radiation therapy facility, but you know what I mean, where, you know, you have to lay down and there's the beam and you might have to have, there's sometimes I feel like masks that I've seen that patients have to wear, you know, that's what I'm thinking. And maybe so, or more so for patients who are receiving treatment for cancers in other portions of the body, that the superficial radiation therapy isn't warranted.
Yeah, so I did start in a cancer center and multiple cancer centers, actually. So I always say my career has been a series of those 1% chance of that ever happening, actually happening. When I first started out, I actually relocated from Michigan to California and was just working a ton of part-time and per diem jobs to make a full-time schedule out of it. And so I didn't even know that superficial was an option. I wasn't happy with one of the places, like the main place that I was working. So I started applying to all of the RTT jobs that were posted online. And there was a derm office that needed a full-time RTT. And I honestly thought it was a mistake. But I submitted my resume anyway, and I immediately got that call back for the interview. I went into work that day and told a bunch of the other therapists that that was what I was going to go for an interview for later that day. And I got so much pushback from it, actually. And on the drive to the interview, I actually contemplated like just turning around and going home. And even when they offered me that job, I was like, I don't know if this is like what I want to do. Like other people are telling me to not do this. And so luckily I had a amazing friend who was like, what can they possibly say to keep you at the job you're in? It's like, nothing. So luckily when I called back like 5 minutes later, they hadn't given the job away to somebody else. So when I started with them, the passion for superficial kind of just came naturally. Like the patients really appreciate the option of having that as a treatment to not be cut on, obviously. And I enjoyed educating them on it. So I started to just love what I was doing as a radiation therapist, and it was different. But during the pandemic, I was an essential worker within a dermatology office. And a lot of my coworkers who were maybe laser nurses, they weren't as essential to be in the office. Like Botox wasn't considered an essential service.
No.
So I was alone a lot of the time, but kind of limited me. So I am a very social person. So I went to social media to kind of create that connection. And I started as Rach the RTT. So I was advocating for the modality. I was sharing information, and I was just really connecting with other RTs online. But that advocacy was kind of what got me noticed by the ARRT. And I got the I Am the Gold Standard Award for that advocacy. And a little bit later with that award, I also had posted a TikTok where we have silver eye shields. And my patients had told me that they don't hurt. I didn't believe them. Thought they were lying to me. So I put it in my own eye and made a TikTok about it. And SkinCure Oncology saw that. So now I have this amazing job where I'm helping to provide education on this modality. And I do presentations for rad tech societies and lecture for radiation therapy programs. It's been a whirlwind of like those, who would have thought this is where I'm going to be when I like 5-10 years down the road in my career, but I could not be happier with what's gone on. And I get to advocate for something that I have believed in for years with a team that's really changing the face of how skin cancer is treated and revolutionizing how we treat non-melanoma skin cancers.
This episode is brought to you by xraytech.org, the rad tech career resource. If you're considering a career in radiology, check out xraytech.org to get honest information on schools, degree options, career paths, and salaries. So question though, do the silver eye things, do they hurt?
They don't. So what we do is like an eye drop that's numbing, and the numbing drop does relieve it. I was a contact wearer for about 10 years. I was used to touching my eye. For somebody who's not, it's probably still a little weird, but
they go in the eye?
It's like a contact lens that's made of silver.
Because the eyes are very sensitive to radiation, right?
Yeah, we don't want to radiate or give any extra exposure to the lens of the eye. We're always keeping Alara in mind. So if we have to put the silver shields in, they're getting the silver shields.
What other type of shielding do you use? Do you just have like the normal shielding, like a lap shield, or is it?
Yeah, so we have the apron, the lead thyroid shield, which for radiation therapists, that's not something I ever learned about. We don't use those for radiation therapy. We're using a kV of about 50 to 100. We're not in those MV energies like you would see in the radiation oncology department. So with these lower ones, we do have that increased amount of scatter. So now we are using those shielding. We also have, on top of those, we have like lead shield cutouts. They're 0.762 millimeter thickness lead. And it comes in a large roll, and we just unroll it. You use some like garden shears and some metal hole punches and create your treatment shields to be the size of the area, your treatment field.
For those of you who are listening and aren't sure what she was saying in terms of KV, it's a technique factor that we use for X-ray and radiation. And basically, it's how fast your beam comes out. So we're saying KV is kilovoltage, and then MV, I guess, for other types of cancer treatment. What is that? What's the measure?
So for radiation therapy, we're using KV energies. They're going to penetrate a lot less. A 50, 70, and 100 KV beam is only going to be about the thickness of the skin. We're not getting much depth with that. But when you're using MV energies, they're penetrating deep into the body. That's what you would utilize for something like a brain tumor or prostate cancer, something that can penetrate through the tissue to reach your targeted area. We're using photon beams. It's a 50, 70, or 100 kV photon beam. If you were to use electrons, they're going to penetrate a little bit deeper. And when you do that, if you want them to be at that top layer of the skin, you have to use something to compensate for that tissue because you want that maximum dose to be delivered at the surface. You have to use something like a bolus to be a tissue compensator to get that to mimic those more superficial energies. So you can use the machines that are in a rad-onc department to treat skin cancers, but they're a lot more powerful than what we need for these early stage non-melanoma skin cancers.
To use this type of treatment that you were just said, is it a certain stage that you'll go up to, like first and second stage cancer? Is it, and if it's
usually a certain depth, if it's, I believe the protocol says if it's deeper than 3.5 millimeters, we're more than likely, if we can't debride it, then, and by we, I mean the dermatologist, I don't debride anything. If we can't have it debrided to have less thickness to it, then we are going to have them seek different treatment in a cancer center where they can use those higher beam energies.
So just to rewind backwards to talk about how you had transitioned from working in a cancer center, doing your per diem, doing your part-time jobs, and that you ended up taking the position at the dermatology office. Now, was that SkinCure that you started working with, or was it?
That was not.
Okay.
So I was working at a non-practice partner dermatology office. SkinCure is one partnering with these offices. You're not going to be able to go out and Google a SkinCure dermatologist. It's not going to pop up. We're partnering as like almost a silent partner where we're not on their like marquee to say, hey, we offer SkinCure here. No, they offer the Gentle Cure treatment. What they were doing was they actually were trying to have my previous dermatologist upgrade his machine and work with SkinCure. They knew of me, and I had moved to California and didn't love it. I wasn't planning on staying there forever. So I had been in touch with some of the radiation therapists who are regional directors for SkinCure. I was like, hey, when you guys get an opening in Nashville, I want it. Like, let me know. I'll come work for you guys. Keep me on your radar. Mm-hmm. And so they had kind of talked to me a few times, and they're like, hey, we have other roles available. Like, would you be interested in a non-clinical role? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. I love being in the office. I love treating patients. And so I think it turned down a few different things that they had kind of proposed. One day they had seen the award, they had seen the TikTok, and that same person was like, hey, my boss wants to talk to you. And I'm like, I'm having a terrible week. No, like, leave me alone. I don't want to do this right now. And he's like, 30 minutes, please. That's all we're asking for. Just meet with us for 30 minutes. And when I met with the two of them, it was a Zoom call. I was like, okay, you have 30 minutes. I carpooled to work, so I'll be in the passenger seat on the way in. And so I was like, that's all I had time for. And I really didn't want to be non-clinical. And when they started talking to me about it, I was like, so you want me to help educate on something I love to educate on? I was like, okay, I can't leave my current job. And they had said, well, give us 5, 10 hours a week and come with us to the ASRT's radiation therapy conference. They knew that they were going to have me sold on all of it. They were seeing the corporate office. They took me to Burr Ridge, Illinois, which is where the corporate office is. And it was one of those things where when you know, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I remember sitting at one of the HR directors' desks, and she was like, oh, we have a meeting. I'm so sorry. I'm going to leave you for 30 minutes. I was like, okay. I immediately got out my phone. I was like, Mom, I need to quit my job at my other office. I love this place. I want to work with these people. Like this is such a positive and healthy work environment. I found my job. Mm-hmm. And I actually didn't leave right away. I continued to work part-time with SkinCure, kind of working on little projects. We started a fundraiser for the ASRT Foundation through a website called bonfire.com, and you can make t-shirts. So we were raising money and kind of getting the superficial slogans out there that we had been using and getting people to know our name. And I went and worked the booth with them at the conference, and everything just kind of kept telling me like, this is where I belong. It's almost been a year for me. So in March, it'll be a year that I've been full-time with SkinCure Oncology. It's been interesting. I never wanted to be non-clinical, and now look at me. Yeah. Non-clinical. I do always say I want to go into the PRN pool, but I'm usually too busy to not be working on everything else. I think if they would have told me right off the bat that it had been founded by radiation therapists and that so many radiation therapists were in the management positions, I think they would have had me immediately, because I mean, there's nothing better than working for somebody who knows what you're doing. So I think they would have had me a little bit sooner if they mentioned it. That's always something that I really think is a powerful thing to mention, is that they've been where we've been.
So your education portion with them, are you going out to the different sites that they have their treatments at, or are you?
I go to the schools. So okay. My first initiative was to cold email all of the program directors who are in the radiation therapy programs and see if they would let me do a guest lecture on IGSRT. It's not on the content specifications right now, so it's not something that will be on the students' board exam. We are working to change that, and it's something where the ARRT only revisits that every so many years, but we will be on it. Superficial radiation will be on that content specification, and I'm hoping when it is, these program directors are looking at their course content and they're like, oh, I need to make a lecture on that. I think I have an email from somebody who offered to do a guest lecture. Let me see if she'll still do it. Last year, we did 30 presentations for the schools. There's only about 100, a little bit less. We're getting there. And it's always one of those things where a lot of radiation therapists kind of saw superficial as a lesser modality that wasn't as important, but we're all fighting cancer. We're all on the same battle. We're all advocating for our patients to get the best care they can. I think when they see that what we're doing is of equal value to any other role as radiation therapists, they're more inclined to talk about it with their students and let us do the guest presentation. Let the students even rotate and go see a local practice where they can get hands-on with the machines. Got to start somewhere.
I love that you're so passionate about it. Rach, the RTT, doing her here.
I'm a big nerd.
Doing her superficial rad therapy thing over there. I love it.
And it's so funny because like I'll go to the schools and I have like pride in the fact that like I answer all direct messages I get on social media. All of them. It's me answering them. So I answer a lot of questions for students and potential students of like things that they can't Google and find the answer to. I'll go to these schools and somebody will go, I follow you on social media. It still hasn't become not weird. Yeah. I still don't know how to respond to that. I've had students tell me that I'm the reason that they became a radiation therapist, which blows my mind. Because it's like one of those things where it's like, I've been doing the Instagram account. I started it in 2020. We're in 2024 now. Some days I'm like, I hate social media and I don't want to do this. But then I get one message and I'm like, oh, that's why I do this. That's why it's all worth it. I will continue to do it. And sometimes like, I go a couple weeks without posting something and I feel terrible about it. So I'm like, I hope that there's somebody who wasn't counting on that.
While we're on the topic of social media, I just kind of want to go back to how you had touched on, that you had received the I Am the Gold Standard Award from the AORT. And I was asking Rachel before we started recording, like, how did that come about? Did someone nominate you? Did you nominate yourself? So I'm going to let you take the story from here.
Yeah, I had been contacted and was highly encouraged to nominate myself. And that was something that I didn't want to do. I mean, it seems weird because it's like, oh, you post everything, you post all your stuff online. You'd probably love to nominate yourself. Like, no, I still get read when people are like, I follow you on social media. So it wasn't something where I'm like, oh, I'm going to go nominate myself and I deserve this. I needed to, I think, submit my resume and portfolio or something like that that had to contain kind of everything or what the reasoning was of like why I should be awarded this. And I still didn't truly understand like what the significance of what I was doing meant at the time. I was even like, what category am I falling into here? And it was advocacy. So I was advocating for this modality and radiation therapists. I didn't nominate it. I left that. And the day before nominations closed, the person had reached out to me again and said, hey, did you end up doing your nomination? I was like, no, I didn't. And they're like, I really encourage you to do it. So I went and submitted it. And then it was a shock to me when they're like, you've been awarded the I Am the Gold Standard for your advocacy. And when I've started to be more involved in the ASRT community, we see a lot of the ARRT representatives and people who work within the ARRT. So I'm starting to see now what the importance of advocating for superficial was actually doing. We're trying to get it on the content specification list and see that there is a large population of radiation therapists working in this modality. And when the ARRT surveyed them last year or a few years back, we all selected other instead of what modality we were using because superficial was not listed. So now we're representing that. It was a very interesting series. And when SkinCure saw that I was the gold standard, they said that, hey, we're the gold standard of non-melanoma skin cancer treatment. It only makes sense for the gold standard therapists who work with the gold standard treatment come to the ASRT radiation therapy conference. We're going to put your face on a poster. I was like, absolutely not. That's embarrassing. It sounds so stupid because I'm on social media and I do all this stuff. But to have people walk up to me and like, that's your face on there. Like I tried to take a photo with my face and it was the weirdest thing. It's a very odd series of how this happened.
Yeah. But I mean, it's great.
I never wanted to be an influencer for a profession. And even like the sound of that is not what I was going for. I was just trying to educate and be a resource for the therapists out there. Because when I was going through it, I didn't have those resources. And luckily, I met a radiation therapist and she kind of helped me when I didn't have those answers. So I'm just trying to be the resource that somebody else was for me.
Just a great chain of events, I feel like, for you, and, a great story to share about your passion for what you do and the community that you're in and all the good that you're doing. And it's nice. It's good to hear.
I really love it. I even just get like so excited to do these presentations. And I don't think that people, until they've met me and see it, they get a cold email from a person they've never talked to before. And it's like, hey, let me do a presentation for you. That probably sounds boring. Sounds like your students are going to fall asleep and you have to yell at them to like, hey, we have a guest here. Pay attention. But no, when I do this, it's me doing it. Like it's my personality, my like passion for it that comes through in what we're doing. So I try to make it fun. Like I try to be the cool presenter. It shouldn't be a boring thing. And I think like learning about different things and different career paths is something that's so important for all rad techs because you never know where you're going to end up.
You're probably going to start helping to write books on this, like textbooks, because I'm assuming it's probably not even in a textbook section or maybe not in many of the textbooks. So that's going to be your next
brief little paragraphs and just kind of skims over kilovoltage energies for superficial and a little section on skin cancers. Because when I first started working in the dermatology office, I don't think that the people leaving a workplace, place of business are the best people to train the new people coming in, because who cares less than the person who's halfway out the door?
Right.
Unfortunately, that's the kind of treating I got in the beginning, was somebody who was already leaving. So I actually pulled out my textbooks. I read the manual and I called the like toll-free number on the machine to like kind of get more understanding of what I was doing. And when I pulled out my notes from school, there was not much for me to go on. And I feel like when I first started, like I didn't even know how to say squamous, and I was probably saying it incorrectly to my patients for the first couple of weeks. It was something that like was really kind of breezed over. And like I said, like I never expected to work with skin cancers and things like that, like superficial energies. I was working on linear accelerators.
They're like, you can't just give us, like Cliff's Notes. Or when I sat for my RT, it was this yellow book. Everyone used to talk about this yellow book that you could get. I didn't like the yellow book though. So I probably would have read the textbook just like you did.
I actually bought the newer version of the textbook, and I'm not even a student anymore, but I have the newest version.
Everybody, this is Rachel Ward with me tonight. I loved our conversation and educating me on the image-guided superficial radiation therapy. Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing everything with me today.
Of course, this is great. It's so much fun.
All right, everybody, we'll see you next week. Thanks for checking in. We'll see you later. You've been watching The Skeleton Crew, brought to you by xraytech.org. On the next episode, join us to explore the present and the future of the rad tech career in the field of radiology.